focus on. Let me kind of look up what I wrote about that. The other two molecules, nucleic acids and proteins. Nucleic acids and proteins, well, those two kinds of structures are really, I'm going to get a different screen here. I'm going to get a new one. Those two structures are really all about repeating units. So for a nucleic acid, you're just repeating the same thing over and 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 over again. Here's nucleic acid. Nucleic acid is just a bunch, and I mean, it is just a bunch of these things called nucleotides put together. So nucleic acid is just repeating nucleotides. And it's important because it's involved in DNA and RNA. So it's repeating nucleotides. Well, what is a nucleotide? Oh, nucleotide. A nucleotide is where you have a phosphate group that looks like this. There's a phosphorus. I'm just going to draw the entire chemical structure of this because I think it makes it easier for you to see what these things really are. Oftentimes, textbooks will just say, okay, it looks like a circle, and then there's like a little pentagon thing, and then there's like a weird kind of lock and key thing. But no, it's actually a bunch of atoms that are linked together like this. I gotta make sure I get my atoms all correct here. I don't want to mess that up. And I'll draw on the H's as well. And this is linked to another oxygen down below. But we're not gonna go into that yet, because that would be a nucleotide. So this is going to be, I'll just be an OH for now. This is an H. That's an H. That's an H. And then this is linked to something else. Oh, almost time's up. This is now an N. We'll call this a C. Double bond to another N, a C, a double bond to another C. You can see why this gets complicated really quickly. You don't need to know all of these details right here. I'm just filling it in so it seems like it may make a little bit of sense. Instead of having these bizarre kind of chemical, that's an NH, N bonded to an H. Instead of having a bizarre kind of like shape that you have no idea what it means, I think it helps to have this full kind of idea. Here's an H, and then there's a C, and then there's a double bond to O. Okay, this is a complete nucleotide right here. I want to point out the parts to it. Okay, this part right here, I'll distinguish with a green circle. This is the sugar part. That's the sugar part. In all nucleotides, we're going to use ribose. Sometimes we use deoxyribose. But ribose is the basic sugar. Now I'll show you the phosphate group, which is this group right here. Oh, and by the way, I should have put this C right here should have gone in with the ribose. Anyway, this is the phosphate group. When they say a phosphate backbone, we're looking at this group because the phosphate is kind of on the edge of the repeating nucleotide. And then finally, we've got this guy over here is the base. They call it a nitrogenous base sometimes because there's so much nitrogen in here. This is the base. It's all about the base. About the base. Okay, so if you repeat this nucleotide over and over and over again, I'll show you what that looks really briefly here. So it looks like this. Instead of this H, it's going to be something else. It'll be that O is now linked to this phosphorus group again, just repeating again. So we've got a phosphorus over here, double bond, O, oops. There's an O right there, and it's a C, H, H, that's bonded to a C, just bonded to a C. I'm just looking at over here. I'm just repeating the same thing over and over again. Now this base could be this kind of structure. There's 4 other bases that it could be, but overall they're about the same. They either have 1 ring or 2 rings. They're very similar to each other. But anyway, that's the basic structure of a nucleotide right here, and this nucleic acid is if you have more than one that's repeating. And if these are all filled in, it looks something like this. And I'll just say that that's the base because it's too complicated right now for me to draw in a limited amount of time. And then that links in to another phosphorus down below, and it just keeps on repeating. So if you repeat this over and over again, you've got a nucleic acid, and that's important for storing genetic information. It's used in DNA and RNA. Finally, we have proteins. Proteins are like the best things ever. They do just about anything you want for the cell and for the body. They're insanely important. Look at all the functions that I have listed there. You need to know the functions of the proteins. We'll go into more detail. We'll go into an entire unit about proteins later, but for now, I just want to tell you really briefly what proteins are. Proteins have this basic, proteins are just repeating amino acids. It's when proteins are just chains of let's just say protein, chains of amino acids. So repeating amino acids. Amino acids. Now, what is an amino acid? An amino acid has this basic structure. And it's got this R here. It's so weird. R. Okay. Okay, this is an amino acid. This is the basic idea of amino acid. This R group can change, and you can look up a table that all sorts of things this R group could be. It could be just a single H, like for glycine. It could be just like a CH3. It could be a really long, complicated chain, like tryptophan or arginine. Yeah, it can be really long or really small. Anyway, that is an amino acid. Now, if you want to link two amino acids together, you can do that with a condensation reaction. So if I draw another amino acid right next to it, oh my god, it's going to have to be really, 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 really quick. So you do that. Oh, I forgot the lone pair here. I'll draw another amino acid, and that R represents some kind of side chain, they call it. I'm not going to draw on any side chain. I'm just going to leave it as a generic amino acid. Okay, this is OH over here. Okay, I want to show you this. This right here, check this out. Guess what happens here? Yep, that splits out. It's H2O. It splits out. It's a condensation reaction again. And what you're left with is a bond between that carbon and that nitrogen. Those two are bonded together because the water is split out. All right? And then once you have these connected, then you are on the way to making a longer chain. Those side groups, they interact with each other. We'll learn later. Those side groups interact with each other to make really, really, really complicated kind of structures for these proteins, which makes them do all sorts of cool things in your body. So that's it for now. I hope that made sense. Please email me with any questions, and good luck studying.